if you're not being completely surrendered to the Lord in everything you say and do, your fellowship with God will get hindered. And there will be ways that he's not going to use you because you're not being obedient.
I've also been seeing some problems come back that I kind of thought that I had gotten over.
So it hasn't gotten easier the more you've been surrendered.
Okay, so what we just got told was very interesting. So we just got off the phone with one of our friends, and he told us that his mom thought, she didn't think we were drinking alcohol, but she said that your drink specifically looked a little bit like beer.
Yeah. Those are the assumptions. And I can say here and now that they are not true. I deny those accusations. This is flavored water. So when we moved down here to Orlando from Memphis, Tennessee, we were so blessed with like a top 3 aquifer in the entire world. And that was awesome to have. So when we came down here and the water was absolutely horrible, we went out and we bought some flavoring, right? And this flavoring has been awesome. I think this one's like pineapple mango or something. It's really good. So now I'm used to adding flavoring to my water every time I get water. We've only been down here 2 months and I can't stop. So that's what it is. Also, it makes it look really cool with the lights and everything. So I think it adds a good touch. And no, it is not alcohol.
So yeah, we just wanted to get that a little bit clarified. We do not drink. Okay, that actually brings up a good question.
We do not condone that, no.
So, what is your viewpoint on drinking as a Christian?
As a Christian?
As a Christian, because there are mixed viewpoints on this.
100%. I remember my first exposure to a lot of Christians drinking alcohol, which I had never experienced this really growing up in a Baptist church. But I went to a concert in Red Rocks. It was Colorado. It was one of like the K-Love concerts that they did at the Red Rocks venue. And I remember at this venue, they were selling alcohol and beer. And so many Christians were like raising their hands with a glass of beer in one hand and their other hand raised. And I'm like, Mom, what is going on here? I've never seen this in my life. And she's like, Jake, I don't know. So that was my first like exposure to it, but I had never actually had it before. And so me and you did a wedding together mid-August, and I think we were in Birmingham, Alabama, and they had this.
Okay, so
yes.
Pause real quick. When he says did a wedding together, he means we videoed a wedding together.
Correct.
We did not go and officiate a wedding together. That's not what he means.
Definitely need to clarify that.
Yeah. All right.
Continue.
Thank you
for that. So they took communion at this church that we went to the Sunday following the wedding that we went to and filmed and recorded and whatever. And that was my first time ever having it before. And obviously, what's the word? We never get it. I always forget it. In moderation, that's what it is. We had it in moderation for communion. And obviously, it was weird. It tasted horrible to me. I immediately wanted to spit it out. But it was for Jesus. So, I mean, I guess in that way, it's fine. But, you know, I don't like playing with fire when it comes to stuff like that. So I stay away from it completely.
Yeah. So is it wrong for, you know, we don't have to be like experts. We don't have to know the exact right answer, but do you think it's wrong for Christians to drink in general, like on a consistent basis, if it's in some sort of moderation?
Dude, I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I think that would boil down to convictions. Like I've heard people who use that as like a medicine and like calming. So they drink like, I don't know, like barely a little bit like every single night to, I guess, reset and everything. I don't know all the ins and outs about it. I'm not an expert whatsoever on it. I try to stay away from it. And I think maybe that was partly because I was raised that way, but I am very convicted on it and I will never drink. That's my mindset. Okay. What about you?
I guess I would kind of agree with you. I don't see a reason to mess with something that you can maybe fall into or could lead to sin. So I personally don't think that I'm going to end up drinking, even when we do turn 21, because we are not of age right now to drink anyways. Actually, no, you are 19, right?
Correct.
So Jake's birthday was actually about a week ago. So happy late birthday, Jake.
Thank you so much.
But,
19 years old.
Yeah. So let's just hop right in. I believe today we're talking about surrender, which is kind of a big part of both of our lives. So I'm actually really excited to talk about this.
Yeah, man. When you brought up this topic, I was honestly all for it. Because I mean, in a Christian walk, in the Christian daily life, not only do we have to surrender daily to what God wants us to do, but also that's like whatever the calling on our life is. That's also a big point of surrender, and it's fun to navigate exactly what that looks like in every decision that we make and all of our callings and leadings different ways. And it's very important to always be fully surrendered. So I'm ready to get into it.
Yeah. So let's just kind of jump into our stories a little bit. What would you say your story is for the thing that kind of led up to you fully surrendering everything that you needed to surrender?
Hmm. Yeah, this is a good topic. So for me, I didn't really become, I guess, on fire for the Lord until my sophomore year. So like beginning, middle of my sophomore year. So up to that point, I wasn't really fully surrendered on living out my faith when it came to at school. Everybody would know me as the kid who didn't cuss, the goody two shoes, things like that. But I had never really solidified myself as a person that was sharing the gospel and trying to be a light on campus. I was more just trying to, I guess, hide my light under a lampstand kind of thing, or whatever the thing is, under a shade. So that was up to that point. I was not being fully surrendered to what the Lord wanted for me to do, especially at the school setting. And that's where I was really challenged by one of my discipleship group leaders. His name was Kinsey Filippo, to be fully surrendered to God because he had just been called to go be a missionary in Chad, Africa. And when I heard that and saw that story unfold for him, I was just like, oh my goodness, like if this guy's able to do this and, take his new wife to a place like that, then why can't I at least just start sharing the gospel at school? So that was the first time I really like decided, okay, I'm going to be fully surrendered where God has placed me. But even in that, I mean, I talk about this every week. Even in that, I felt God calling me to do different things, and I would always pretty much say no and do my own thing. So when it came to my calling to ministry, that was a big thing that I said no to for a long time, and because of that, it hindered my prayer life and my fellowship with God. That's one thing with surrender. If you're not being completely surrendered to the Lord in everything you say and do, your fellowship with God will get hindered, and there will be ways that He's not going to use you because you're not being obedient. And that was one thing that I had to suffer through because of that. Obviously, God still used me. He still uses broken people, right? But I didn't get to experience maybe what that would have been like on the other side of that. And then another thing, one thing that was hard for me in the end of my story was like the last couple weeks before we ended up coming here. I was in a relationship and I felt led to break that off. And for a week or two there, I was like, I don't really know if I want to do this. I want to work it out and be on my own pace and my own plan. And God ultimately gave me all the open doors to end that. And of course, that was extremely hard because when it came to holding on to what I wanted to do for my future and holding on to this relationship, both of these things were pulling me away from what God actually wanted me to do, and they were actually distractions. So when it comes to surrendering to the Lord in my story, a big part of me being in Orlando is proof that I am surrendered because I left a lot behind. And one thing that God does when you're not fully surrendered is he lets you hit rock bottom so that you can realize exactly how much you need him. And that is a huge part of my story is God allowing me to hit that and then seeing so much fruit from that. Man, we've talked about this. I've grown more in my life the last 8 weeks than I have in my entire life. And the reason is because I'm fully open to whatever God has for me to do. And that's one thing that's been a big part of my story. Because of that, it's led to a lot of peace and a lot of true joy that I can have no matter what's going on the outside. So as far as your story goes, you've surrendered at least to the call to be a Christian a lot more recently than I have. But since you've been a Christian, what has been a big part of your story where you've had to surrender all that to God?
I actually had a follow-up question for you real
Okay.
quick
Yeah, go
about
for it. Go
your
for it.
story. So when you talk about how you're fully surrendered now, would you say is that something that you're still kind of working through every day, or is that something that you feel like you don't even have to try anymore and you're just kind of following up what God wants for you to do?
Great question. It's a battle. It's a battle. Every day you have to carry your cross and follow God. It's a battle. Honestly, it's a burden. The call to follow Christ is not an easy one. Anyone who ever tells you that following God is easy is lying to your face because you actively have to go against the world, go against the culture, and your own flesh all at the same time to do what this book tells you to do and what the Holy Spirit tells you to do. That's hard. That's not easy, and it comes with a lot of battles. So every single day when I wake up, one thing that I've been struggling with recently is reading my Bible right when I wake up in the morning. And when I actually do that, it shows me and it shows God, hey, I'm willing to surrender this day to you. That's why I love reading in the morning. Psalm 92, 1-2 said, it is good to give thanks to the Lord. It is good to worship him. And then it also says it's good to proclaim your unfailing love in the morning and your faithfulness in the evening. So when you wake up, are you being fully surrendered to God? Are you thanking him for his mercy, for even allowing you to step another foot on this earth and take another breath? And so for me, that's been one thing that's been challenging me is I've got to be fully surrendered every single day when I wake up. And if I don't do that, I mean, we've both experienced this. Your day is going to be foggy. Your day is going to be hard. You're not going to see the things that God's doing like you would if you were surrendered. So yes, it's a battle. It's not easy, but like I said, it's worth it. So,
Wow. Okay. So, I guess we'll get into my story a little bit. So, you know this, and if anyone listened to some of the other episodes, you would know this as well. But I got saved about 10 months ago. I think a little bit over 10 months ago now.
it's 11. Yeah.
Is it 11?
Yeah. It's almost 12, actually. It was early December, right?
December 9th.
Yeah. It's November 12th. So, yeah, almost 12 months, almost a year. That's crazy.
Oh, wow. Okay, so I guess it's been a little bit over 11 months.
That's
Wow.
insane.
Dude, time is flying by down here.
We weren't even friends a year ago.
Oh, yeah, we were not.
That's crazy, dude.
You judged me.
That's crazy. Yeah, you judge me too, but it's okay. We're moved on. Guess all right, keep going.
So anyways, I got saved 11 months ago now. And basically the first, I would say 6 or 7 months of that was just me trying to figure out what following God actually looked like. So I would say that whole time, I wouldn't say that I wasn't surrendered, but I also didn't know exactly what God wanted me to do. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I didn't really have anything that I felt like God was telling me to do, and I just wasn't willing to do it. I think that was just a season where I was just constantly trying to grow and learn how to read my Bible, learn how to take notes, learn how to pray, like all of that stuff. So when it really started to get challenging was actually at Beach Week, which is our summer camp. And that's when God called me to ministry and basically told me that I'm going to be working in full-time ministry sometime in the future. And that was definitely the hardest part for me because I have grown up always wanting to do something in the movie industry, whether that's acting, but it turned into directing. That's what I wanted to do. I wanted to be a film director. And so basically God came into my life 11 months ago, and then he told me like 7 months later that I need to just let go of everything that I've built my whole life,
Wow.
like working towards. So I think that was definitely really, really hard. It's something that I said yes. I said yes out loud to everyone. Like I told them like, yeah, I'm going to do this. But really in my heart, I was really fighting hard to actually believe that and tell myself that I'm actually going to follow through.
Wow.
So
Wow.
the last, I guess it's been 3, now maybe 4 months. Has it been 3 or 4 months since Beach Week?
It was early July, so July, August, September, October. Yeah, so 4.
Yeah. So the last 4 months has just been me trying to fully let go of all of my plans. And that's just something else that's really hard. Like, so obviously we're down here in Orlando. We're going to Full Sail University, which is a big media school. And I'm doing film for school because I felt like God never called me away from that. I felt like God actually opened up doors for me to come down here and do this. And I've seen the blessings from being here so far. So I know I'm supposed to be here. I know I'm not being disobedient by being in film, but that also is still something that's really hard for me because I'm learning so much about something that I've been wanting to do my whole life, but God's telling me that that's not what I'm going to do for the rest of my life.
Wow.
So it's just such a hard thing to kind of blend together when you know what you're supposed to do. You know partially what you're supposed to do for the rest of your life, but you also have this other thing that's just kind of, nagging at your heart a little bit.
So when you go into class and you're learning about all this film stuff, and you'll get into your film classes that are like on set pretty soon here. How do you think it's going to be when you go into that and it's such a cool experience, and then you're reminded, man, this is not what I get to do full time. So like, but you obviously don't know what your future career holds necessarily. None of us know that. I mean, that's always, it might change. But how do you go into that fully surrendered, but also take in the fact that God's placed you here divinely?
So one thing that it has been on my mind is that I don't know when I am going to be starting my ministry. I don't know when I'm going to be working in a church.
I'll cut you off here. Your ministry's already started.
Okay.
It's already started. But
I don't
yes.
know when I'm going to start making money from ministry.
Correct.
Is that
There
better?
you go.
All
yes. Right. So, but don't say your ministry hasn't already started. So.
Yeah, we'll get into that. So anyways, I don't know when that's going to be. So basically, that kind of is telling me, like, I can't just ignore school, because there's a chance that I could end up working a film career before I do full-time ministry. But also there's a chance that I might not work in the film industry at all. There's a chance that I might be working in a church directly after college. So it's really hard for me to just kind of block out the fact that I might not be in film for the rest of my life, but then also need to learn and grow on how ministry would work for me. So for me, I'm called to children's ministry, and right now it's looking like I'm going to end up doing kind of like events for like youth events and stuff like that across the country. I don't know if there's going to be anything else more than that, but that's kind of where my trajectory is looking towards right now. So I'm needing to learn two different things, because I feel like I definitely am kind of called to be at Full Sail right now in film, but I also know that the calling on my life is not going to be in film. So it's almost like I'm having to learn two different things at the same time.
Wow. Yeah, dude. That sounds like surrender to me, though. Like, even though you don't understand, even though you don't know why, you still know that God has given you a piece about being here. So you're saying, all right, I'm going to be all in and see what happens. And I think that's very important. The guy that I mentioned earlier in my story, Kinsey Filippo, I didn't mention this part. He was called to go to Chad with his newlywed wife. And before they could even get there, it got shut down. So they followed God actively and ended up like serving at different churches across the country within a span of 3 months, because they literally just picked up and went and stayed with people and just stuff like that. So a lot of times surrender is not just this steady plan you think God's going to put you on. No, it's going to change. So like with a blessing, for example, Abraham and Isaac. God gave Abraham the blessing of Isaac. That was something they had prayed for a long time, and he gave him the blessing. But then one day he said, hey, wake up and go sacrifice your son that I gave you. So something that Abraham was passionate about, someone that Abraham had seen as a blessing in his life, God said, hey, you need to be ready to give this up. So when it comes to a passion, when it comes to something that we feel God's given us a blessing, I think absolutely God has blessed you with your ability to film make, lighting, things like that. He's also blessed me with the ability to talk, right? And that's two things that God's given us a passion for. And I just think it's beautiful that we are surrendered to the Lord, but also he's allowing us to watch our passions play out and see where this goes. And we've seen so many ministry opportunities since we've been here. So God's blessed us big time with that. But like we talked about earlier, it is very difficult going in every day knowing that, hey, this may not be what I do full time after college. That's been hard.
So when we talk about that, that also kind of makes me think about this a little bit, which is something that I'm kind of struggling with, is when I think about how we have this passion to do this stuff. Like, I have passion for filmmaking, you have passion for sports broadcasting, all that stuff, and he's opened up doors for us to go to school and learn everything about it. That brings in those thoughts like, okay, well, maybe God wants me to do both. Maybe God wants me to do both for the rest of my life. Why else would he do that? So that's something that I'm struggling with, just trying to kind of let those thoughts go, because I think that is honestly trying to put a box around God's plan for you. So, how have you been handling that, knowing all the opportunities that you have and are going to get with going to Full Sail?
Yeah, so I'll go back to the beach week moment that we both had. And we both walked into that week not fully surrendered to what God may be leading us to do. And that night, that Wednesday night, when we felt this calling, when we felt God speaking over us in this way, or it may have been a Thursday, but I think it was Wednesday. I don't know if you remember my reaction, but I was mad at God. I was mad because I knew what he was telling me to do. And he was telling me to give up my plan when it came to future media jobs. And he told me, you're called to be a pastor. And I was mad at God. I wanted to punch a wall, and I believe I could have and punched a hole through it because I was so mad at him. And I remember for you, I don't know if you remember this, but after you felt called to that, it took you a while to even say it. Remember when we were sitting in the service, we were listening to the guy, and I knew something was up with you. And I was probing you. I was like, Chris, what is it? Chris, what is it? It's usually how our conversations go when we're struggling with something. We have to we have to probe each other a little bit. I was like, Chris. And you finally said, I saw myself on stage.
No.
Was that what it was?
I was not on stage.
Was it not?
No,
I saw a stage. Was that what it was?
Yes, it was a church. So I saw a church. I was in the inside of a church, and there was just a bunch of people in front of me with their hands lifted and stuff like that.
Okay.
So
gotcha.
that's my vision. And that's actually a vision that I had back in January when we had our youth event, but I didn't actually know what that meant yet.
Yeah.
And I thought that had to be something that I created in my own mind because I was so new to the faith. So that's why I don't think I was that's tough. I don't think that I thought God was calling me to ministry. I just think that I thought I tricked myself into thinking that God called me into ministry. So
Right.
Sorry, that was like really weird wording, but it's okay. You get the point.
Yes.
I didn't think that was real. So I don't think I was being disobedient because I genuinely didn't know what that meant.
Right. Yeah. And back to the reactions part, like both of us were like very like we practiced a lot of hesitation in that moment because we both knew what God wanted us to do, but it was just hard for us to get it out. Right. I remember how relieving it was to tell you guys that I had been called in August and finally get that out there. But the point of that is to go back to your question earlier. When it comes to walking in every day, knowing that maybe I won't do this, how do I live on mission? How do I do all these things and navigate maybe having a job after college? I think we both had to realize that just because God had called us to ministry did not mean we had to let go of the blessings he had already poured in. So for me, I got a huge scholarship. Thank the Lord. I needed that big time financially. But when I got that scholarship, I was like, okay, this is God's call for my life, whatever. So when I had always paired that scholarship with the fact that I was called to media, and that's why the Lord had blessed me with that. So when I got the call to ministry and I finally surrendered to that, I was calling my dad and I was like, Dad, how are we going to give back this $10,000? I mean, this is not good. I'm not called to media anymore. And I had mistakenly manipulated God's blessings to fit my agenda. And that was the point where even after I was surrendered to the call of ministry, I wasn't even surrendered to see God's blessings over my life and actually accept those and take those in. So when I go in every day, it's definitely a lot harder because everybody around me is talking about how they want this job and this job and this job. And a lot of our assignments are talking about future careers that we want. I have to be fully surrendered in those moments and write down on these pieces of paper, I'm called to be a pastor. And that doesn't make sense to a lot of people because they're like, Jake, you won this scholarship. You are at the best sports broadcasting school, the one that's the most intense in the entire country. Why are you doing this? And a lot of times my answer is, I don't know. I don't know yet. But however, I have to be fully surrendered in every single assignment that I do, every single word that I say, and not play with God in my thoughts.
Okay, that brings up a really good point. So that kind of shows that just because you're fully surrendered doesn't mean you're going to know everything.
Correct.
You do not know what is going to happen tomorrow. You don't know the future at all. So that is a really
fully surrendering is admitting that you don't know everything.
Yes.
That's really what it is.
Yes, that's a really great way to say that. Wow.
And it's hard to admit that, especially for us guys, with pride and everything.
Yeah.
Man, it's tough. it's tough to be fully surrendered, but as I said, it's worth it. So for you, what's been a challenge and honestly a big struggle that you've had to deal with being here in Orlando, being here at Full Sail? And that doesn't have to pertain to school or anything, but something that you've had to be fully surrendered to every day.
I feel like one thing that I've noticed since we moved down here is that I have been growing a lot more since before we moved here, but I've also been seeing some problems come back that I kind of thought that I had gotten over. So there's things like lust and pride. There's things that I didn't think that were really an issue for me that I started to realize, oh wait, that's actually something that's a big problem. And also the way that I talk to people, I've noticed that I say things that I should have no reason to say. Like I'll make really stupid jokes that just kind of make people upset or are inappropriate and stuff like that. I've just noticed that it's honestly been growing as I've been growing in my faith.
Hmm. Wow. So it hasn't gotten easier the more you've been surrendered.
I would say that I feel a lot more joy and peace when it comes to the following the things that God wants me to do. Like one thing that I feel really led to do is to kind of pour into people at my school that don't know the Lord, because it's kind of hard for there's a lot of Christians that they find it hard to be friends with people that aren't Christians because they grew up in the church and stuff like that. So I've been taking advantage of the fact that I've only been a Christian for less than a year. So like I know how to hang out with these people. Like that was me less than a year ago. So that's something that I've just felt really led to do, and I felt all the joy that comes from doing that. And I definitely feel like I have more peace than I did before I moved here. But I still would say that my struggles are probably coming from the fact that I'm growing so much.
Yeah, definitely. Sin hurts more too. The more you go close to God, the more you have fellowship with Him, it starts to hurt more. That's really cool that you've been able to go through that and take advantage of that, like where God's placed you. I love that part about it.
Yeah. It's crazy how that works because it just seems like a little bit backwards.
Hmm.
You know, like the closer you get to the Lord, the more I guess it makes sense that the closer you get to God, the more pain you'll feel when you do things that are against His will. But it's just like such a strange concept to try and think of.
Well, it's like if if you have if you're really close with a friend, and the more you get to know each other, the more that you build that trust and community and love. Of course, it's going to hurt more when they do little things against you, right? And that's one thing that I had to go through with friendships too. I think all of us have, and it's a good thing about my story is when those things have happened, we come together even more after that. And one thing when it comes to surrender, not only in friendships but especially with God, is you have to be vulnerable and you have to be honest with yourself and with other people. There's honesty builds community more than anything. Honesty and vulnerability, because it basically shows that I am willing to trust you with my problems, the things that aren't on the forefront. When you see me, you don't see these things. So it takes a lot for me to actually give up a little bit of myself and trust you with those things. So you have to do that with God too. Again, that big part of my story when it comes to surrendering my call to ministry was just not being honest in my prayers to God and knowing in the back of my heart, in the back of my mind, that I was not doing that. So it's honestly a challenge with a roommate sometimes too, because you live together, right? And a lot of times you want to hide your faults. You want to hide those things that you do, and it's tough to be able to be open with you every single day. And honestly, I think it's a good practice for marriage, honestly, because you got to do that every single day. But it's definitely been hard and it's been a challenge. But I've loved the uncomfortability of it.
Yeah, that definitely is something that I struggled with, especially like the first couple weeks when we first moved down here. But I've noticed as I started being more open with you that I've started to feel a lot more peace, because I feel like you get peace when you open up about things. And I don't know if that's biblical. Is that? I don't know.
Definitely.
So opening up with someone that you're close with is definitely a really good thing to do, because I feel like if you're not willing to open up with one of your friends, then how are you supposed to be open with God? So I think it's such a good practice to just go to people that you trust with all of your problems, and that should include God. And God should be first, actually. But you will find joy and peace of opening up about your problems, because if you're not willing to do that, then that means that you're telling yourself that you can handle it on your own and you know all the answers. And that is very prideful.
Wow. It's very true. Very true. And to add on to that, like, if you can't surrender the little things, then how are you supposed to surrender the big things? Right? If you can't be honest with God about the little parts in your life that you're wrong with, how can you surrender the big things that He calls you to do that could be massive? Right? Every single thing matters. We've talked a little bit about this when it comes to our thought life. The little thoughts that we entertain, the tiny thoughts, even the doubts about God that we entertain, form form our mindset when it comes to every topic that we cover, every topic that we believe in. If we believe little doubts about God, little things that we don't open up about, that maybe God isn't good, or that God doesn't love me, or that He's not watching over me all the time, He doesn't have a good plan, then that is ultimately going to affect our entire mindset and affect our relationships with other people. So you have to surrender the little things in order for God to use you in the big things. And that's one thing that's been hard for me, but there is so much joy when it comes, like you said, when it comes to surrender. It's hard though.
Oh yeah. Like honestly, if I didn't tell you some of the things that I've been telling you, especially recently, I don't know where my mind would be, because you need to have a person that can tell you, "Hey, you should not be thinking that way. That's not right. That's not from God." And I feel like I'm so blessed to have a Christian roommate with me. What would you say for people that aren't as blessed with that opportunity? Because there's a lot of people that are just in, normal, having normal college experiences. Like we're in an apartment, which is awesome, but some people don't have that blessing of just being almost like built-in friends with their roommates.
Yeah. God is your best option always. Like, even when we are in a blessed situation where we can tell each other things and not worry about the negative impacts of it, like we can trust each other, still we should not go to each other first about our problems. We should have already been on our knees confessing and repenting of the things that we do that are wrong, the things that we think are wrong, the things that we say. And that should have already been done and covered. But also, it is good to have community where you can open up about those things for the first time. And there's life in that. There's life in confessing that. But if you're not blessed to be in a situation with good friends that you can trust, number one, I challenge you to go find those people, find those community and pray for them. Pray for those people to come into your life, because God will bless you with that. But also give everything over to God. When it came to Jesus as the Son of Man, the person He went to every single day, sometimes for hours a day, was God the Father. He would talk to Him, pray to Him. And He was also God at the same time. But He knew that the man in Him could not last if he was not in community with God the Father. And ultimately, that's what set Him up later in Matthew, where it talks about Him being in the Garden of Gethsemane and Him saying, "Lord, take this cup from me. But even if you don't, I will go through with this." That's not verbatim, but you get the point. Like, He was in such a good place with God. He knew that number one, He would hear God's plan. He would hear God's will. And number two, that He would follow God's will no matter what it came to. And when you're fully surrendered, it doesn't matter who else you have around you if you have the Lord. You can make it with no one else. However, obviously, pray for those good community. Pray for those people around you that can come into your life and help you. Because good friends and godly friends are so valuable. They really are.
Yeah, and that is something that I think both of us have been kind of blessed with after moving down here. That's something like that was kind of the first thing on our agenda, was to find that group of people that we could, number one, pour into, which is a very important part about community. If you go into something only wanting to take, you're not going to feel the true joy that comes with that. So you should be in a community so you can pour into other people, but it also gives you the opportunity to learn from people, because everyone has different stories and you can learn something from everyone's story. Like, everyone has a powerful testimony, whether you grew up in the church or whether you got saved 11 months ago or 1 month ago or a week ago. Everyone's story is powerful. And I think seeking out the opportunities to find those stories and learn from them will help you grow in your faith, and it'll also help them grow it'll help them grow too, because they can learn from you. So that's like, I think it's so fascinating that we're all one body, and that's what it means. Like the body has different parts, but we need all the parts for it to work. So you need to find that community, find that church, and obviously, yes, God is the best option for everything, but that doesn't mean that you shouldn't seek out those opportunities to
Yep.
find community.
It's facts. And even if you have people that you view as good community, that's what Jesus had. He had his disciples, but on the night that he needed them most, they fell asleep. They weren't praying like he asked them to. So even the best community, the people that'll die for you, the people that'll ride the way with you, even they will let you down, but God will never let you down. So for you, Chris, as we wrap up, we've obviously talked about what it's looked like to surrender in our lives, but what are some proactive ways that people can surrender every single day that you have to hit these marks? What are those things?
So we already talked about this a little bit, but yes, reading your Bible in the mornings is the best way to kind of set your day up for success for success in a way. Like if you get on Instagram and that's the first thing you do in the morning, like you want to check your notifications or something, then you're already starting your day off on the wrong foot. You're already thinking about the wrong things and you're not focusing on God whatsoever. So that's the first thing that you can do. And I think the second thing that you could do is to just try and listen to those little thoughts that come into your mind, like those little things that God's telling you to do, whether it's to talk to a person or something small, like share a piece of gum, whatever it is. Just try and listen to those little thoughts. And if you are not obedient to those little thoughts, try and figure out why. Go to God about the little things that you are disobedient about. I remember a few weeks after we got here, I felt the Spirit telling me to go talk to this random kid at the gym, and I didn't do it. And I told you pretty much right after we left. So like after we left the parking lot, so you couldn't make me go and do it because we were already gone. But just try and listen to those little thoughts, and if you're not obedient to them, go to God about it and ask him why. Ask him why you're struggling with that. Figure out the root of that sin that's in your life. Like what is causing you to not be able to listen to God completely? Because if you can't listen to the little things, then you will not be able to do the big things that God has for you.
100%. 100%. And I think some other ways to be proactive, and one thing I've been very passionate about, is just winning the war in your mind. The little thoughts that come up, the big thoughts that come up that you know are not from God, you have to reject them immediately when they come up in your mind. You have to. And that's how you live surrendered, and that's how you keep your eyes focused on what God wants you to throughout your day, is you are not entertaining any evil thought in your mind. You're saying no immediately. That's one thing. Another thing, I think, a big thing, honestly, the biggest thing for me when it comes to surrender is posture. How are you approaching the Lord? Are you approaching him in your bed, you're sleepy, you're tired, and you're rolling over on your bed praying to him? Or are you on your knees, on your face, talking to the God who saved you from going to hell for eternity, who gave you a purpose, who gave you a plan, who gave you life? If you had died for me, it would completely change our relationship. I would talk to you differently. We'd act differently. I'd want to do things for you because you had saved me from something. And that's one problem when it comes to how we look at God, when we pray to him, when we talk to him. Do we give him the reverence that he deserves? Do we acknowledge all that he's brought us out of? He's given us life. He's given us freedom. He's given us a purpose and a plan that we didn't have when we were in the depths of the darkness, right? So follow God in the way that he deserves to be followed, in love and full surrender and commitment, the way you would for your best friend, right? So that's one thing that I really prioritize, is posture, because God has done so much for me. I have to do my best for him every single day. And when it's hard, there's grace, which is so awesome.
And I feel like a lot of people bring up, you should talk to God like he's your friend. And I think there is some sort of truth in that statement, where you talk to your friends consistently, and you talk to your friends about your problems, stuff like that. But I don't think that means that you should always just be treating God like he is your friend, because that's not true. He is your Lord, he is your Savior, and he's just the Lord of your life. And that's something that your friends, no matter how close you think they are to you, they will never be that.
Right.
So
That's really good. There's a lot more honor that needs to be had when it comes to how we serve God. That is 100% true. 100% true. I love that point.
yeah. So anyways, I thank you guys so much for tuning into this week's episode of the King of Hearts podcast. If you have any comments, questions, concerns, anything like that, just send us a DM on Instagram or just leave a comment down below if you're watching on YouTube. Also, if you're watching on Apple, or I guess listening on Apple Podcasts, we just wanted to let you know that we have a video version of the podcast that we really love, and I think you would love it too.
Absolutely.
Sorry, and not in a prideful way. We just
it's pretty good lighting. It looks
my
good.
gosh. So anyways, yeah, if you want to check that out, you can check out our YouTube channel or our Spotify. So yeah, thank you guys so much for tuning in. If you do not know Jesus Christ, send us a message as well. We'd love to talk to you about that, no matter where you're at, no matter what religion you follow, or if you're an atheist, whatever. Just send us a message. We're really open and just willing to talk to anyone. So
Yeah, again, we're not experts. We're just passionate about the Lord, right? And these topics are tough. We struggle with surrender every single day. So we're definitely not experts, and we're not cultured in this a lot. A lot of people have done way more surrendering than we have. So yeah, just know that we're not experts and that we're just trying to do our best. So you can always feel free to reach out to us.
yeah, absolutely. So thank you guys so much for tuning in, and we will see you next week.
Peace.